The crucifixion, latitudinal and longitudinal alliances, the dual citizenship of nations. Cross-reference dual citizenship pathway to legal residency, multi-generational solution to the anarchy present in the United States of America today. What is who willing to trade for what, to attain what checks and balances between separate rings of polar, temperate, tropical, latitudinal alliances on one hand, and time zone segmented polar, temperate, tropic, longitudinal alliances on the other hand. Shouldn't have to trade anything, get everything. You really think so? Quotation of, cross-reference 105 degrees west longitude, Keystone XL pipeline, cross-reference the husky size who used to wear as a youth, extra large, Keystone arch, peace is an architectural solution. From the ground up, responded whom? Cross-reference the quotation of U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, painted on the wall along the way to the stairs leading up to the public gallery of the U.S. House of Representatives. Open quote, "The nation behaves well who treat their natural resources as assets." Side note, what is an asset? Anything of value, anything. Tangible or intangible. Cross-reference whose nickname at a well-known East Coast business school. Whose prank of putting different name tags in front of where who sat one day. Everyone in the class had an appropriate, applicable, fitting, suitable, insightful prank name placed. Whose was intangibles? What was who else's? But I digress. Back to Theodore Roosevelt and the tangible assets of natural resources. The nations behave well who treat their natural resources as assets which must be passed on to the next generation. Cross-reference the idea of sovereign net present value and endowing an entire family and the descendants thereof with a pool of capital which remains undiminished only the earnings from working that capital are distributed to the family, an equal part to each member of the family. With the principle being passed on. The nations behave well who treat their natural resources as assets which must, cross-reference, open quote, what must be done. Cross-reference, thy will be loved and done. Here, as it is hereafter. The consistent logic that applies throughout time. Compared to the hypnotic entrance, which makes total sense for the hormonal and circadian and immediate needs of now, but which may not be consistent throughout all time. Cross-reference, eat, drink, and be merry, comma, for tomorrow we die. Epicurean logic. Greek. Epicurus. Greek debt. Today. Odysseus, way back then, the traveler, Ulysses. Cognitive map research at college and beyond. Timothy Leary, exploring nooks and crannies, even unto finding where things turn inside out. God willing, who hopes, and turn inside out yet again and again until back-to-back quantum eversions are formed, making the stable quantums of wave-particle dualities we know and love as mass energy. A scarce, comma, productive, comma, natural resource, which must be passed on to the next generation, increased and undiminished in value. Isn't that redundant? If you have more of it, it's going to be worth more. No, it might be more of a lower quality. Intrinsic value matters as much as quantity. Think about it. You know that. And Teddy Roosevelt, the Rough Rider, Sagamore Hill to, it wasn't Bunker Hill, there was another hill involved. Maybe Cuba and that part of the world, which came up last night in the wee hours regarding Puerto Rico, Haiti, and Dominican Republic, and offering observer status to our neighbors as guests in the U.S. House of Representatives, similar to the way Palestine has been offered observer status at the United Nations. Cross-reference the Apple Computer Corporation taking certain applications out of the App Store subsequent to that for security reasons, and whose suggestion robotic apps constantly test any apps that are in the store, which who retweeted, meaning that accepting observer status would likely involve ways and means to overcome fears about who undermining whom, and instead forming a more perfect union, by whom working better with whom, because who now has observer status. The nation behaves well who treats their natural resources as assets which must be passed on to the next generation undiminished and increased in value. So all the oil being pumped out of Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Iran and the United States and Canada, all that money has to be invested in assets of equal or greater value than the oil that was sold. You all know, everybody knows you don't sell your house to buy your food. If you sell your house, you use the proceeds to buy alternate shelter, whether it's a camper or tickets sufficient that you have a roof over your head and a seat that can recline sufficiently so you can sleep while you travel around the world or wherever. And today, the United States of North America House of Representatives voted to permit U.S. oil at rock bottom prices. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom because of the surplus of the overcompensation of fracking and natural gas and fears of unsecured logistics to deliver oil from the Middle East and South Asia and Russia, and Brazil and Venezuela, BP. So much oil, the poor people that are invested in the oil need more money. So you got to export it, get more customers. However, as put before this great deliberative body in the wee hours of when recently, and months before that, and maybe a year before that again, according to the Constitution of the United States of America, members have sworn to uphold and defend the U.S., the United States of North America House of Representatives controls the power of the purse, the right and the duty to appropriate value. Appropriate being a polite word for take, as in, open quote, take, eat. This is whose structure. the organization of whose mass energy, of whose light let be, the towards hello and away goodbye, and the combination of the two, see you around, God willing, who hopes. Divine light dancers must eat. It's not a sin to eat. There's an Arabic word for celebration that sounds very much like our word for eat. It's called Eid, similar to the word side. And when you follow where the food comes from upstream, you find side has a lot to do with whether or not there's food on the table. Not necessarily our side against their side, but inside compared to outside. Cross-reference the recent Nobel Prize for neutrino research. The sin, the false shortcut that seems to save steps, but which actually makes more steps, unnecessary steps. The false shortcut here, which makes unnecessary steps for Malia and Sonia and Nash and who else and their descendants, is that in order to feed the oil investors now, we're letting U.S. scarce productive natural resources be sold at rock bottom prices and exported out of the country after those who have gone before us have carefully adhered to the words of Theodore Roosevelt. George Herbert Walker Bush Sr. did not permit the sale of U.S. oil. Richard Nixon did not. William Clinton kept the oil. We didn't have all the fracking going on back then. So, the power of the purse resides in the house. One way to appropriate value is to go out and take it from the other person. The Buddhist idea of war. 3 young men show up at the house. There's only one man at the house, his wife and a child. There's no way the one man can keep the 3 young men from taking the house, so they do. They appropriate it. However, there's a more fair way to do that. It's called eminent domain. And in that case, the House of Representatives arrives at your house and says, we're going to put a road in through here. We need I-95. Got to unite the East Coast in a more perfect union. We need Highway 1 to link Fairbanks and La Paz or Bogota or Santiago, and we're going to pay you 10 times what your property's highest assessed value is or has been. So it'll cover not only your cost to replace what we're taking from you, but also your cost to relocate. The inconvenience for having to transition and change gears and move things around. Appropriate. Only the United States House of Representatives can initiate that process, the same way only the U.S. House can initiate the impeachment of the President of the United States, no matter what the President may have done. destroyed evidence, covered it up. Doesn't matter unless the U.S. House takes a majority or sufficient number of members to initiate the impeachment process. The law can't touch who at all. Cross-reference Bob Dylan. She's an artist. She don't look back. Do I have the batteries? Are they in the box? No, I don't look back. I look ahead. What am I going to need next? Oh, here it is, and the batteries are low. Or there are enough batteries so I can go ahead. Can recharge the battery later. Look ahead to what you're going to do rather than look back to in case. It's a matter of now. And that's probably why the U.S. House of Representatives approved the export of U.S. oil. 2% of the world's oil reserves here in the United States, and we use 25% of the U.S. oil. We use 25% of the energy of the world, and we only have 2% of the oil. And what percentage of our oil are we using? That's what my mind wanted to know. That's what I said, but it was in the wrong paragraph. I don't know what percentage of our oil we're using yet. Inshallah, this should be able to answer by now here, the other phone. Why is it, Siri, are you listening? What percentage of the U.S. oil are we currently using, Siri?
Interesting question.
Siri, search the internet for what percentage of U.S. oil is currently being used by the United States.
Here's what I found on the web for what percentage of U.S. oil is currently being used by the United States.
Web search. Energy policy of the United States. The free. Land of who's free. Made home by who's brave. Appropriate, take, brave. On behalf of who's fair. That's kind of why it's necessary to add those extra words. The land of the rich and the free is how Mr. Dillon perhaps accurately and what pointedly there's some, it's not quite a requested remedy, it's more of a indictment. We try to speak in requested remedies. So let's cut to the chase. What's the requested remedy here? With coal mostly being used, peak oil in the United States, 1509, the United States House of Representatives has the authority to purchase oil, and it's a good time to buy because prices are low, it's plentiful, and then put the oil in storage and keep it for when we need it. But the U.S. doesn't have much money to buy the oil. We're so poor. Most powerful nation in the world, richest per capita in the world, and we don't have any extra money to buy energy or oil. Is somebody cooking the books here? What's going on, huh? Well, let's see what we can do about it. Let's start with this oil. We'll buy it. We'll even pay the people who own it to store it for us, leave it in the ground. What is that going to cost us? 10% extra per how much unit of time? plus the inspectors to make sure it actually is left in there. Why don't we buy the whole well while we're at it? You want to pay into the future? We'll set you up with an annuity. We'll pay you for, and your descendants will endow you. This is a mini pilot project to endow oil owners and prove that the theory is sound. This actually works. And at a good price, because supply is up. Where are we going to get the money to do this? Money doesn't grow on trees. You can't make money out of thin air. All very true. We want sound money. We want U.S. money to mean when we say, you're welcome, the person who's given us something, or the person to whom we've given something. Let's try this again. This is a tricky, these magic words of please and thank you. Spells. When we, the United States, say thank you, to whom has traded what to us in return for our dollar, they can, magic word formula is for them to say, you're welcome. Come back and buy some more. Give us another $1. We'll give you some more coconuts. But do you ever hear anybody say, you're welcome too? That's what sound money is. That the dollar that we pay for whose coconut or fish or computer chip or eyeglasses means that that party will be equally welcomed by us the way they have welcomed us. It's RPMs to that. Sort of starting up RPMs. Vroom, vroom, get that engine to turn. Ring gear. Starter motor, come on. Sound money. So, these U.S. oil owners, producers, title holders, they want to know that the dollar they get from us now for their oil means when they present the dollar to us, they're going to get the comparable value of whatever it is. If you're like me, it might be intangible. It might be justice, that you'll get your day in court. That $800 filing fee, it won't go up to $2,000 to get your case filed. It'll stay reasonably priced. Or the lawyer who's going to represent you in court will still cost about $600 an hour. Because you're welcome too. So with that understood, now that we're buying the oil, it goes on our balance sheet. That oil is in our bathtub. It's in our balance sheet. It's on the sheet. The blanket, those models of gravity you've seen where the blanket bends and light curves because of the mass. the story of how whose prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him and all who follow him, removed the graven images from inside the oldest house of God, like Jesus Christ at the temple with the money changers doing business inside, so the poor people could break their 20s from the cash teller, get 10s and 5s and 1s to donate for various charities and stuff, and still get home with enough money for dinner, and enjoying the security of the church to do that. Jesus said, no, go out in the street and do it so that the street becomes as safe as the church is in here, and you guys live up to your moral obligation to make sure that happens instead of living off the church security. So Muhammad did a similar thing 33 generations later and told the tribes, look, we've got to take this black stone that we have here, it was white back then, and place it in the corner of the oldest house of God. And that will represent the mass that comes out of the non-mutually exclusive turning inside out often enough to make the back-to-back quantum eversions that we know and love as wave-particle duality of mutually exclusive, tangible assets. And the way the problem was resolved when one tribe said, we want to be the ones to carry the stone for our prophet Muhammad to put it there. And the other one, no, we want to be the tribe who carries the white stone, and now black. So many people have touched it. File length, Bismillahi, Allah Akbar.